When Larry Jordan opened his brother Michael's old locker in their childhood garage, he found something that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his family. A single envelope, yellow with age, hidden behind the metal backing where no one was meant to find it. And on the front, written in his father's unmistakable handwriting, was one word: truth. Larry's hands trembled as he held it. His father, James Jordan, had been gone for 32 years, murdered in 1993. But here was his handwriting, clear as day, on a letter that had been waiting in the darkness all this time. What truth was his father hiding? Why would he seal a letter and hide it in Michael Jordan's locker? And why did Larry suddenly feel like his entire life was about to change? When Larry called Michael to tell him about the letter, his brother's reaction was instant and intense. "Don't open it," Michael said, his voice shaking. "Promise me you won't open it without me. I'm flying out tonight." Something in Michael's voice told Larry this wasn't just an old letter. This was something bigger, something that had been buried for a reason. Inside that envelope was a secret their father had carried for decades, a truth about their family that would explain why Michael was cut from his high school basketball team, a truth about sacrifice, love, and impossible choices, a truth that would reveal Larry wasn't exactly who he thought he was, but there was more. Hidden with the letter were photographs of a woman neither brother recognized, a woman with kind eyes and a sad smile, a woman who had watched them their entire lives from the shadows, a woman who loved them but could never tell them why. Who was she? What did she have to do with their family? And why had their father kept her existence a secret? When the brothers finally opened that letter together, they discovered their family wasn't built on blood alone. It was built on a sacrifice so profound, so heartbreaking, that it would make them question everything they knew about love, family, and what it really means to be brothers. Stay with us through this entire story to discover the hidden truth that James Jordan took to his grave. A truth that would explain Michael Jordan's unstoppable drive. A truth that would reveal why their father made choices that seemed cruel but were actually acts of desperate love. And a truth that would introduce them to someone who had been part of their family all along, watching, waiting, hoping they would one day understand. This is the story of a letter that changed everything. And it all started in a dusty garage in Wilmington, North Carolina, with a brother, a hidden envelope, and one word: truth. Larry Jordan's hands were covered in dust. The old garage smelled like memories, motor oil, leather, and something sweet he couldn't name. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a gray streak across his skin. "Why did Mom keep all this stuff?" he muttered to himself. 3 weeks had passed since his mother's funeral. 3 weeks since Dolores Jordan had been laid to rest next to his father. Now Larry stood alone in the house where he grew up, sorting through 50 years of family history. The garage had always been special. This was where everything happened. This was where he and Michael spent every summer evening shooting hoops. This was where they argued, laughed, and dreamed about the future. Larry pushed aside an old lawn mower and spotted something in the corner, a wooden locker. His heart jumped a little. He remembered that locker. It used to hold basketballs, old sneakers, and Michael's collection of basketball cards. "I wonder if those cards are still in there," Larry said, kneeling down. The locker was heavy. He pulled it away from the wall and something shifted inside. A soft thump, like paper sliding across wood. Larry's fingers found the rusty latch. The hinges screamed as he pried the door open. Inside, the locker was mostly empty. A deflated basketball, some old rags, a broken picture frame, but something had fallen behind the back panel. Larry reached his hand into the narrow space between the metal backing and the wooden frame. His fingers touched paper, an envelope. He pulled it out carefully. The paper was yellow with age, brittle at the edges. Someone had written one word on the front in thick black marker: truth. Larry's breath caught in his throat. He knew that handwriting. He'd seen it on birthday cards, Christmas presents, and notes left on the kitchen table, his father's handwriting. James Jordan had been gone since 1993, murdered during a random robbery that broke the family's heart. That was 32 years ago. But here was his handwriting, clear as day, on an envelope that had been hidden in Michael's old locker. Larry turned the envelope over. It was sealed, never opened. Whatever his father had written was still inside, waiting. "Why would Dad hide a letter?" Larry whispered. His hand trembled as he held it up to the dim light coming through the garage window. The envelope was too thick to see through. Multiple pages, maybe. Something important enough to write down. Something important enough to hide. Larry's mind raced. His father had been a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. James Jordan didn't waste time on meaningless things. If he wrote a letter and hid it, there was a reason. The word truth stared back at Larry like a challenge. What truth? What could his father have needed to hide in a letter? What couldn't he say out loud? Larry stood up, envelope in hand, and walked to the garage door. Outside, the North Carolina sun was setting. The neighborhood looked the same as it did 40 years ago. Same trees, same streets, same basketball hoops in every driveway. He thought about opening the envelope right there, just tearing it open and reading whatever was inside. But something stopped him. This felt bigger than just him. The letter had been hidden in Michael's locker, not his. That meant something. That meant Michael was supposed to be part of this. Larry pulled out his phone and stared at his brother's name in his contacts. Michael Jordan, the most famous athlete in the world. The man whose face was on sneakers, commercials, and posters in every country on earth. His little brother. Larry's finger hovered over the call button. It was 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. Michael was probably busy. He was always busy these days, running the Hornets, managing his businesses, living his legendary life. But this couldn't wait. Larry looked back at the envelope in his other hand. The word truth seemed to glow in the fading sunlight. What if this changed everything? What if whatever was in this letter turned their whole family history upside down? What if some truths were better left buried in old lockers in forgotten garages? Larry took a deep breath. His finger touched the screen. Michael's number started to ring. But before the first ring finished, Larry hung up. He couldn't do this over the phone. Whatever was in this letter, whatever truth his father had been hiding for decades, they needed to read it together, face to face, brother to brother. Larry slipped the envelope into his jacket pocket and walked back into the house. Tomorrow he would call Michael. Tomorrow they would open the letter together. Tomorrow they would discover the truth their father had hidden for so long. Tonight, Larry would wonder and worry and hope that whatever was inside that envelope wouldn't destroy the family his parents had built. The summer of 1978 was the hottest anyone in Wilmington could remember. Heat rose from the driveway in waves, making the air shimmer like water. Larry Jordan stood at the free throw line, basketball in his hands. He was 15 years old, 6 feet tall, and getting taller every month. Sweat dripped down his face, but he didn't wipe it away. He was focused. 21-6, Larry announced. Game point. Across from him, 13-year-old Michael Jordan looked like he might cry. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His knees were scraped from diving for loose balls. He'd given everything he had, and it still wasn't enough. It was never enough. One more game, Michael said, his voice tight. Best 2 out of 3. Larry laughed, but not meanly. Mike, we've played 5 games today. I won all 5. You need to accept when you're beat. I'm not beat, Michael's voice cracked. I'm just warming up. Larry dribbled the ball slowly, looking at his little brother. Michael's hands were on his knees. He could barely stand, but his eyes, those eyes were pure fire. All right, Larry said. One more game, but when I win, you have to admit I'm better. You're not better, Michael shot back. You're just bigger. Size is part of the game, little brother. They played the 6th game. Larry won 15-3. Michael walked to the side of the driveway and sat down hard on the concrete. He pulled his knees to his chest and stared at the ground. His shoulders shook, but he made no sound. Larry felt a twist in his stomach. He hated seeing Michael like this. But their father had taught them an important lesson. Never let anyone win. Make them earn it. That's how you build champions. You're getting better, Larry said, sitting down next to Michael. A year ago, I beat you 15-0 every time. Now you're scoring 3-4 points. That's progress. Progress isn't winning, Michael said quietly. Not yet, but it will be. Michael looked up at his brother. Do you think I'll ever beat you? Larry was quiet for a moment. He wanted to say yes to give his brother hope, but he also wanted to be honest. That's what brothers did. They told each other the truth. Maybe, Larry said finally, if you keep working, if you want it bad enough. I want it, Michael whispered. I want it more than anything. From the porch, their father James watched his 2 sons. He held a glass of sweet tea, the ice melting in the heat. His face was thoughtful, serious. James Jordan saw something in Michael that worried him. The boy was tying his entire worth to beating Larry. Basketball wasn't just a game to Michael, it was everything. His identity, his purpose, his proof that he mattered. That kind of obsession could destroy a person, or it could make them unstoppable. James took a sip of his tea and made a decision. A hard decision, a father's decision. He went inside the house to the small office where he kept important papers. He pulled out his journal, the one he'd been keeping since the boys were born. He flipped to a blank page and started writing. The pen moved slowly across the paper. James was choosing his words carefully. This wasn't just a journal entry. This was something more. This was the beginning of something he would need to explain someday. Michael needs to learn about failure, James wrote. Not the small failures of losing a driveway game to his brother. Real failure, public failure. The kind that burns in your gut and makes you question everything. Only then will he develop the fire he'll need. Only then will he become what he's meant to become. James paused, pen hovering over the paper. What he was considering, what he was planning felt wrong. It felt like betrayal, but sometimes fathers had to hurt their children to help them. I see greatness in both my sons, he continued writing. Larry has talent, but he's comfortable. He wins too easily. He doesn't have the hunger. Michael has the hunger, but he needs to learn how to use it. He needs something to drive him, something bigger than just beating his brother in one-on-one. James closed the journal and locked it in his desk drawer. The plan was forming in his mind. It would take time. It would take patience. But in 2 years, when Michael tried out for the varsity basketball team, James would have a conversation with the coach. A difficult conversation. A conversation that would change Michael's life forever. Outside, Michael finally stood up from the driveway. His face was set with determination. Tomorrow, Michael said to Larry. We play again tomorrow. Larry grinned. And I'll beat you again tomorrow. Maybe, or maybe tomorrow is the day everything changes. Larry stood and put his arm around his little brother's shoulders. They walked toward the house together, the basketball tucked under Larry's arm. You know what, Mike, Larry said. I hope you do beat me someday. I really do. Because if you can beat me, you can beat anybody. Michael looked up at his brother. When I beat you, not if, when, I'm never going to let you forget it. Deal, Larry laughed. They walked inside, not knowing that their father was upstairs, writing plans that would shape both their futures. They didn't know about the journal, the letter that would eventually be written, or the truth that was being hidden. They were just two brothers playing basketball, pushing each other to be better. That night, James Jordan added one more line to his journal entry. Forgive me, sons. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. But I promise you this, everything I do is because I love you. Both of you, always. Larry couldn't sleep. The envelope sat on his nightstand, propped against the lamp. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that single word, truth. At 2 in the morning, he gave up trying to rest. He walked downstairs and made coffee, even though caffeine was the last thing his racing mind needed. The house felt empty without his mother. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen table where they ate breakfast before school. The living room where they watched Michael's games on TV, cheering so loud the neighbors complained. The hallway where Mom hung every family photo she could find. Larry picked up his phone 3 times before sunrise. Each time he put it back down. What would he say? Hey Mike, found a mysterious letter from Dad. Want to fly across the country to read it with me? But the truth was he couldn't open it alone. Something in his gut told him this was important. This was family business. This required both brothers. At 8 o'clock, Larry finally made the call. The phone rang twice before Michael answered. His voice was alert, awake. Michael had always been an early riser. Larry, what's going on, big brother? Larry smiled despite his nervousness. Michael always called him that big brother. Even though Michael was famous, even though Michael's face was known worldwide, he never forgot that Larry came first. Mike, I found something. At Mom's house. In your old locker. There was a pause. Larry heard traffic in the background. Michael was probably driving somewhere, always busy, always moving. What did you find? Michael's voice had changed. The casual warmth was gone, replaced by something careful. A letter from Dad, it's sealed. It says truth on the front. The silence on the other end lasted so long that Larry checked his phone to make sure they were still connected. Michael, you there? I'm here. Michael's voice was barely above a whisper. Don't open it, not without me. I'm flying out tonight. Larry was surprised by the intensity in his brother's voice. Mike, it's probably just some old. Promise me, Larry. Michael's voice was firm now, almost desperate. Promise me you won't open it until I get there. This is important. I promise, Larry said. "But why? What's going on?" "I don't know," Michael said, "but I need to be there when we find out. I'll call you when I land. Don't open that letter, Larry, please." They hung up and Larry stared at his phone. Michael's reaction was strange. It was like he'd been expecting this or dreading it. The day crawled by. Larry tried to distract himself by packing up more of his mother's things, but his eyes kept drifting to the envelope on the kitchen counter. He picked it up again, holding it to the light. The paper was thick, old. He could see the shadow of writing inside but couldn't make out any words. What truth had their father been hiding, and why hide it at all? Larry's mind wandered back through the years. Had there been signs? Moments when his father seemed like he wanted to say something but held back. Conversations that ended too quickly. He remembered one night years ago. It was right after his father's funeral in 1993. The family had gathered at the house, grieving together. Michael had pulled Larry aside, away from the crowd. "Dad told me something once," Michael had said, his eyes red from crying. "About a year before he died. He said there was something important he needed to tell us, but he said we weren't ready. He said someday we'd find out, and it would explain everything." Larry had been too deep in his own grief to ask questions. "Explain what?" "I don't know," I asked him, but he just shook his head. He said when the time was right, we'd understand. I thought he was just being philosophical, you know. Dad was always saying mysterious stuff like that. Larry had forgotten about that conversation. It had been 32 years ago, buried under decades of life, marriage, children, careers. But now, holding this envelope, that memory came rushing back. Had Dad been talking about this letter? Had he known, even back then, that someday they would find it? At 6 o'clock, Larry's phone rang. "Michael, I'm landing in an hour," Michael said. "I'll rent a car and drive straight there. Should be at the house by 8:30. "You really dropped everything to fly out here?" Larry asked. "Of course I did. You're my brother and this is about Dad. Nothing is more important than that." Larry felt emotion rise in his throat. Despite everything, the fame, the money, the worldwide recognition, Michael was still the same kid who played one-on-one in their driveway. Family still came first. "Mike," Larry said carefully, "are you scared of what might be in this letter?" Michael was quiet for a long moment. "Yeah," he finally admitted. "I am, aren't you?" "Terrified," Larry said. "Whatever it is," Michael said, "we'll handle it together like we always do, like brothers." After they hung up, Larry made dinner he wouldn't eat. He cleaned rooms that were already clean. He reorganized boxes he'd already organized. Anything to keep his hands busy, his mind occupied. At 8:15, headlights swept across the living room window. Larry's heart jumped. He walked to the front door and opened it. Michael stood on the porch wearing jeans and a simple black jacket. No entourage, no security, no attention-seeking clothes, just Michael, just his brother. They hugged without speaking, holding on longer than usual. "You okay?" Michael asked. "No," Larry admitted. "You?" "No." They walked inside together. The envelope sat on the kitchen table, exactly where Larry had left it. Michael stared at it like it might explode. "That's it. That's it. And you haven't opened it." "I promised." Michael nodded slowly. He pulled out a chair and sat down. Larry sat across from him. The envelope lay between them like a barrier. "Before we open it," Michael said, "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Larry's stomach tightened. "What?" "When Dad died, Mom pulled me aside at the funeral. She was crying, barely holding it together. She grabbed my hand and said, 'Your father loved you boys more than his own life. Everything he did was for you. Remember that, Michael. Whatever you learn someday, whatever truths come out, remember he loved you.'" Larry felt cold. She knew Mom knew about this. "I think so, and I think she knew we'd find it eventually." They sat in silence, both staring at the envelope that held their father's secrets. "Ready?" Larry finally asked. Michael reached across the table and gripped his brother's hand. "Together." "Together," Larry agreed. But as Michael reached for the envelope with his other hand, Larry stopped him. "Wait, there's something else. Something I haven't shown you yet." Michael's hand froze inches from the envelope. "What else did you find?" Larry stood up and walked to a box by the counter. He pulled out a stack of old photographs, bound with a rubber band that crumbled when he touched it. "These were with the letter," Larry said, setting them on the table. "I didn't look through all of them. I wanted to wait for you. Michael picked up the first photo. It showed their father as a young man, maybe 20 years old, wearing a baseball uniform. He stood on a pitcher's mound, ball in hand, face full of joy and determination. "Dad played baseball," Michael said softly. "I never knew that." "Me neither," Larry said. They flipped through more photos. Their father with teammates. Their father holding a trophy. Their father looking strong and athletic and full of dreams. "He never talked about this," Michael said. "Why would he hide this part of his life?" Larry shrugged. Maybe it hurt too much. Maybe something happened that he didn't want to remember. They kept looking. The photos changed. Their father looked older, sadder. There was a picture of him outside a hospital, his arm in a sling. Then came photos of their family. Baby Larry, baby Michael. But mixed in were other photos, ones that didn't quite make sense. Michael held up a photo of their father with two young boys, maybe 6 and 8 years old. One was clearly Larry. The other looked almost like Michael, but the date written on the back said 1969. "I would have been 6 in 1969, Michael said, confused. "But this kid looks 8 or 9. "I noticed that too," Larry said. "I thought maybe it was a cousin or something." More strange photos. Their father teaching 2 boys to throw a baseball. Their father watching 2 boys play basketball in a driveway that wasn't their current house. Always 2 boys, always around the same ages, but something felt off about the timeline. Michael set the photos down, his hands shaking slightly. "Larry, what is going on? What was Dad hiding?" Before Larry could answer, his phone buzzed, an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Hello. Is this Larry Jordan?" A woman's voice, elderly and kind. "Yes, this is Larry. My name is Clara Williams. I knew your father a long time ago. I heard about your mother passing. I'm so sorry for your loss. I've been trying to reach you or your brother Michael for 20 years. I thought maybe now you're ready to know the truth." Larry's blood went cold. He put the phone on speaker. "Michael's here with me. What truth are you talking about?" There was a long pause. They heard the woman take a shaky breath. "I think you boys found a letter," Clara said. "A letter from your father, am I right?" Larry and Michael looked at each other, eyes wide. "How did you know about that?" Michael asked. "Because your father told me he was writing it. This was back in 1992, about a year before he died. He said he was finally putting the truth on paper, hiding it somewhere you boys would eventually find it. He said when you found it, when you were finally ready, everything would make sense." "What truth?" Larry demanded. "What are you talking about?" "I can't tell you over the phone," Clara said. "This is something you need to read in your father's words. But I can tell you this, everything your father did, every choice he made was because he loved you both. Don't forget that when you read what's in that letter." "Wait," Michael said. "Don't hang up, please, just tell us." But the line went dead. Larry and Michael sat in stunned silence. The envelope seemed to glow between them, pulsing with secrets. "We need to open it now," Michael said. "Right now." But Larry's mind was spinning backward in time, pulled by the photographs, by Clara's words, by a memory he'd buried deep. "Wait," Larry said. "Before we open it, I need to tell you about something. Something I remember. Something that happened a long time ago." "What?" Michael asked. Larry closed his eyes, reaching back 37 years. "Do you remember the day you got cut from the varsity team, when we were at Laney High School?" Michael's jaw tight. "Every single day of my life. October 1978, Laney High School Gymnasium." 15-year-old Michael Jordan pushed through the crowd of students gathering around the bulletin board. The varsity basketball tryout results were posted. His heart hammered in his chest. Larry was already on the team, a junior starter, one of the best players in the school. Everyone assumed the Jordan brothers would play together this year, dominating opponents, making history. Michael's finger traced down the list of names. Once, twice, 3 times, his name wasn't there. A sophomore named Leary Smith, who was taller than Michael, had made the team instead. Michael stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. Other students pushed past him, some celebrating, others crying. But Michael couldn't move. The world had stopped making sense. Larry found him 20 minutes later, still standing in the same spot, staring at the list like it might change if he looked long enough. "Mike," Larry said softly, putting a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Come on, let's go home." "I don't understand," Michael said. His voice sounded hollow, empty. "I'm better than half the guys on that list. I'm better than Lear." "I know you are. Coach made a mistake." They drove home in silence, but when they pulled into the driveway, their father was waiting on the porch. His face was serious, troubled. "Boys," James said, "come inside. We need to talk." They sat in the living room. James looked at Michael with an expression that was hard to read: sadness, determination, something else underneath. "I talked to Coach Herring," James said carefully. "He told me why he made his decision." "Because Leroy's taller," Michael said bitterly. "That's the only reason." "Coach thinks you need another year to develop," James continued. "You're talented, Mike, very talented, but you need to get stronger. Junior varsity is where you'll get playing time, where you'll grow into your potential." Michael's face was stone. "He picked someone else because I'm not good enough." "That's not what I said." "That's what it means." Michael's voice cracked. He stood up, fists clenched. "I worked harder than anyone at those tryouts. I gave everything, and it wasn't enough." James stood too, reaching for his son. "Michael, listen to me. Sometimes things happen that don't seem fair. Sometimes the people making decisions have reasons we don't understand. But I promise you this, everything that happens to you is preparing you for something greater." "I don't want to hear it," Michael stormed toward the door. Larry followed him to the garage, where Michael grabbed a basketball and started shooting. Tears streamed down his face. He missed shot after shot, his vision blurred, his hands shaking with rage and heartbreak. "Mike," Larry tried, "leave me alone. It's just 1 year. You'll make varsity next year, and you'll be so good they'll forget anyone else ever." "I said leave me alone." Larry backed away, returning to the house. Through the window, he watched his brother shoot baskets in the darkness, over and over, refusing to quit, refusing to accept defeat. Inside, James sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. Dolores, their mother, stood beside him. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "Did I?" James looked up at his wife. "He's heartbroken, Dolores. I broke my son's heart." "You gave him something to fight for. You gave him fire." James pulled out his journal and began to write. His hand moved quickly across the page, words flowing with purpose and pain. "Coach asked me what he should do," James wrote. "He said Michael and Leary were close in skill, but Leary had the height advantage. He asked if I thought Michael was ready for varsity, and I told him no. I told him Michael needed 1 more year. I told him to cut my son from the team." James paused, pen hovering over the paper. "God forgive me. Michael will hate me if he ever finds out, but I see something in him, a hunger, a fire that needs fuel. Success is easy to handle. Rejection, failure, heartbreak, those things forge champions. My son is going to be great. I know it in my bones, but he needs this pain. He needs this rejection. He needs to feel what it's like to be told he's not good enough." James continued writing. "One day, when he's achieved everything he's capable of, when he's proven himself to the world, I'll tell him the truth. I'll explain why I did this. And I hope, God, I hope, he'll understand that everything I did was because I loved him." That night, James took the pages he'd written and added them to an envelope. He wrote one word on the front: truth. He took the envelope to the garage, to Michael's old locker, and hid it behind the metal backing where it wouldn't be found by accident. Only when someone was really looking, only when they were moving the locker itself, would they discover it. "When the time is right," James whispered, "they'll understand." Back in the present, Larry finished telling the story. Michael sat motionless, his face unreadable. "You're saying," Michael said slowly, "that Dad might have, that he told Coach to cut me?" "I don't know," Larry said. "But those photos, that phone call from Clara, the way Dad hid this letter, something happened, Mike. Something he couldn't tell us while he was alive." Michael stood up and walked to the window. His shoulders were tight, his hands clenched. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely controlled. "If Dad orchestrated the worst moment of my childhood, if he deliberately caused me that pain, then he had a reason," Larry finished, "and we're about to find out what it was." Michael turned back to face his brother. "Open the letter, open it now. I need to know the truth." Larry reached for the envelope, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The paper felt fragile, like it might crumble under his touch. "Wait," Larry said, pulling his hand back. "Before we open this, I need to say something." Michael turned from the window, his face tight with emotion. "What?" No matter what's in here, Larry said. No matter what Dad did or didn't do, we're brothers. That doesn't change. Nothing can change that. Michael's expression softened slightly. He walked back to the table and sat down. You're right, I'm sorry, I'm angry, scared, confused. Me too, Larry admitted. All of those things. They sat in silence for a moment. The house creaked around them, settling into the evening. Outside, crickets began their nightly song. You remember the day you finally beat me? Larry asked suddenly. In one-on-one. A small smile crossed Michael's face. August 14th, 1980. I was 17. You were 19. I beat you 15-13, and I screamed so loud Mom thought someone was dying. I let you win that game, Larry said with a grin. You did not, Michael protested, but he was smiling now too. I'm kidding, you destroyed me, I couldn't keep up anymore. You'd gotten faster, stronger. You'd become better than me, and we both knew it. Michael's smile faded. You know what I remember most about that day? Not the winning. I remember you hugging me after. You said, now you're ready. Remember that? Larry nodded. I meant it. You'd finally passed me. You didn't need me to push you anymore. That's where you're wrong, Michael said quietly. I've always needed you. Every championship, every success, I carried you with me. Those one-on-one games in our driveway, those thousands of losses before that first win, that's what made me. You made me. Larry felt tears sting his eyes. You never told me that. I should have. I should have told you 1,000 times. Michael reached across the table and squeezed his brother's hand. You were the first person who believed I could be great. Even when you were beating me every single day, you never treated me like I was less. You treated me like I was competition, like I mattered. You did matter, you do matter. They sat like that for a moment, hands clasped across the table, two brothers preparing to uncover a truth that might change everything they thought they knew. Okay, Michael said finally. I'm ready now. Let's see what Dad wanted us to know. Larry picked up the envelope carefully. The seal had yellowed with age, but it was still intact. He slid his finger under the flap and broke it open. Inside were several pages of their father's neat handwriting folded carefully. Larry pulled them out and set them on the table, but before either brother could start reading, Larry's phone rang again. The same unknown number. It's Clara, Larry said. Should I answer? Yes, Michael said immediately. Maybe she can help us understand whatever we're about to read. Larry answered and put it on speaker again. Hello. Boys, Clara's voice came through, warm but urgent. I'm sorry I hung up before. This is difficult for me. I made a promise to someone a long time ago, and I'm breaking that promise by calling you. Who did you make a promise to? Michael asked. There was a long pause. To a woman named Evelyn Reed. She was my best friend, and she was connected to your family in a way that's complicated. Larry and Michael exchanged confused looks. Who was Evelyn Reed? Larry asked. That's what the letter will tell you, Clara said. But I'm calling because I need you to understand something before you read it. Your father was a good man, one of the best men I ever knew. What he did, the choices he made, they came from love, pure love. Don't forget that when you read his words. You keep saying that, Michael said, frustration creeping into his voice. Everyone keeps telling us Dad loved us. We know that. What we don't know is what he was hiding. I can't tell you over the phone, Clara repeated. But I can meet with you tomorrow if you want. I have things that belong to Evelyn, things she wanted you boys to have. Letters, photographs, memories. Why did this Evelyn woman have things for us? Larry asked. Clara's voice broke slightly. Because she loved you, both of you, even though she never got to tell you. The line went quiet except for Clara's soft breathing. Where are you? Michael asked gently. Greensboro, about 2 hours from Wilmington. We'll come to you, Michael said, looking at Larry, who nodded. Tomorrow morning, give us your address. After Clara gave them the information and hung up, the brothers sat staring at the pages in front of them. More mysteries, Larry said. Who was Evelyn Reed? Why did she love us? What does any of this have to do with Dad? Only one way to find out, Michael said. Larry unfolded the first page. Their father's handwriting was clear and deliberate. The first line made them both catch their breath. Larry and Michael, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you in person. But there's something you need to know about our family, about where you came from, and about the sacrifice that brought us all together." Larry's hand started shaking again. Michael put his hand over his brother's, steadying him. "Keep reading," Michael whispered. Larry continued. "This story begins in 1961 when I was 19 years old. I was working at a factory and playing baseball on weekends. I had dreams of going professional. I met a young woman named Evelyn Reed at a church social. She was 17, beautiful and full of life. We fell in love." Michael's eyes widened. Dad had a girlfriend before Mom. "Keep reading," Larry urged. "By the spring of 1962, Evelyn was pregnant. We weren't married. In those days in our community, this was a scandal. I wanted to marry her immediately. I loved her and I wanted to be a father to our child. But Evelyn's family, especially her father, forbade it. He said I was a poor factory worker with unrealistic dreams. He said I would ruin his daughter's life." Larry stopped reading. He looked at Michael, his face pale. "Mike, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Michael nodded slowly. "Keep reading. We need to know everything." Larry's voice shook as he continued. "I fought to keep my child. I refused to give up. But then I tore my shoulder playing baseball, ending any chance I had at a professional career. Suddenly, I was just a factory worker with no prospects. Evelyn's father increased the pressure. He wanted us to give the baby up for adoption." The brothers sat frozen, the weight of their father's words pressing down on them like a physical force. "Then I met your mother, Dolores," Larry read. "She knew about Evelyn and the baby, and she made me an offer I'll never forget. She said if Evelyn's family forced her to give up the baby, she would marry me. She would help me adopt my own child so I could keep him." Larry's voice broke completely. He couldn't continue. Michael gently took the pages from his brother's hands. "In January 1963, Michael read, his own voice unsteady, Evelyn gave birth to a baby boy. 3 days later, through a legal process, Dolores and I adopted him together. We named him Larry." The silence in the kitchen was absolute. Larry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the sink and gripped the edge of the counter, his back to Michael. "Larry," Michael said softly. "I need a minute," Larry said, his voice thick with emotion. Michael set the pages down and went to his brother. He put his hand on Larry's shoulder. "You're my brother," Michael said firmly. "Nothing changes that, nothing." Larry turned around, tears streaming down his face. "Dolores wasn't my biological mother. Evelyn Reed was, and James, Dad, he wasn't." Larry couldn't finish the sentence. "He was your father," Michael said. "He fought to keep you. He built his whole life around keeping you. That makes him your father more than biology ever could." Larry slid down to sit on the floor, his back against the cabinets. Michael sat beside him. "There's more," Michael said quietly. "We need to read the rest." "I don't know if I can." "We'll do it together. Whatever else Dad wrote, whatever other truths are in there, we'll handle it together." They sat on the kitchen floor for 10 minutes, neither speaking, both trying to process what they'd learned. Finally, Larry wiped his eyes and nodded. "Okay, let's finish it." They returned to the table. Michael picked up where they'd left off, reading aloud. "A few months after Larry's adoption, Dolores discovered she was pregnant. The doctors had been wrong about her ability to have children. In February 1963, just 13 months after Larry's birth, she gave birth to Michael." Michael paused, looking at his brother. "So we're actually biological half-brothers." "Seems that way," Larry said, his voice hoarse. "But we grew up thinking we were full brothers. Because that's what we needed to think. That's what Dad and Mom wanted us to believe." Michael continued reading, and with each paragraph, the full scope of their father's secret revealed itself. A story of love, sacrifice, impossible choices, and a truth too complicated to share with children. "We need to finish this," Michael said. "But first, I need to know, are you okay?" Larry looked at his brother, his half-brother, his real brother, the person who'd pushed him and challenged him and stood beside him through everything. "I don't know," Larry admitted. "But I know we'll figure it out, together." "Together," Michael agreed. They picked up the next page, ready to discover the rest of their father's hidden truth. Michael's voice was steady but quiet as he continued reading their father's letter. "I made a decision that has haunted me every day since. I decided to never tell you boys the truth about Larry's birth mother, not while Evelyn's father was alive, not while it could cause scandal or pain. I told myself I was protecting you, protecting Evelyn, protecting our family. Larry leaned forward, listening intently as Michael read on. But the truth kept growing heavier. Every birthday, every holiday, every milestone, I carried this secret. Dolores carried it too, and Evelyn carried the heaviest burden of all. She gave up her son so he could have a father. She sacrificed her own happiness so that Larry could have a family. Michael paused, his throat tight. He looked at Larry, whose eyes were fixed on the pages. "Keep going," Larry whispered. "I kept in touch with Evelyn over the years. I sent her photographs. I told her about your accomplishments, your games, your lives. She never married. She became a teacher, pouring all the love she couldn't give to Larry into other people's children. And she waited, hoping that someday she might meet the son she gave away." Michael set the page down. "Larry, I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry," Larry said, wiping his eyes. "Just keep reading. I need to know everything." Michael picked up the next page, but before he could continue, the words on the paper triggered a memory. A memory of a summer day years ago when something happened that he'd never fully understood until now. "Wait," Michael said. "I remember something. Something from the summer of 1980. "What?" Larry asked. Michael closed his eyes, traveling back through time. June 1980, 2 years after Michael's cut from the varsity team. The summer air was thick with humidity. 17-year-old Michael had just finished his junior year at Laney High School. He was now a star on the varsity team, growing taller every month, his skills sharpening with every practice. Larry was 19, recently graduated from high school. He'd received a scholarship to play basketball at a small college in North Carolina. He should have been excited, but something had changed in him. The fire that once burned bright had dimmed to embers. Michael noticed it during their one-on-one games. Larry was distracted, making mistakes he never used to make. Sometimes he would stop mid-game and just stare off into the distance, lost in thoughts he wouldn't share. One evening, James called Larry into the living room. "Let's go for a drive," he said. "Just you and me." Larry grabbed his jacket and they left. Michael watched from the window as his father's truck disappeared down the street. Something about the way Dad's face looked serious, almost sad, made Michael uneasy. They were gone for over 2 hours. When they returned, Larry went straight to his room without saying a word. James sat on the porch alone, staring at nothing. Michael went outside and sat beside his father. "Everything okay, Dad?" James turned to look at his son. There was something in his eyes Michael had never seen before, a deep pain mixed with love and regret. "Michael," James said slowly, "do you ever wonder about fate, about why things happen the way they do?" "Sometimes," Michael said. "Like when I got cut from varsity. I used to think it was random, but now I think maybe it happened for a reason." James smiled sadly. "Everything happens for a reason, son, even the painful things, especially the painful things." "What did you and Larry talk about?" James was quiet for a long moment. "About dreams, about what happens when your dreams don't turn out the way you expected, about finding new dreams when the old ones die." "Is Larry okay?" "He will be. He's going through something difficult right now. He's watching you surpass him, and that's hard for an older brother to accept, but it's necessary. You both needed this." Michael didn't understand what his father meant. Needed what? "Larry needed to push you, to make you hungry, to give you something to chase, and you needed someone to chase. You made each other better. That was always the plan." "What plan?" Michael asked, confused. James put his arm around his son's shoulders. "Someday you'll understand. Someday, when you're older, when you've lived more life, I'll explain everything. But for now, just know this: everything I've done, every choice I've made has been because I love you boys. Both of you, equally, completely." Michael felt there was more his father wanted to say, something hovering just beneath the surface. But James stood up and went inside, leaving Michael alone on the porch with unanswered questions. Later that night, Michael knocked on Larry's door. His brother was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. "You want to talk?" Michael asked. "Not really." "Come on, Larry, something's bothering you. I can tell." Larry sat up and looked at his younger brother. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Like the life you're in isn't the one you were supposed to have?" Michael sat on the edge of the bed. What are you talking about? Nothing, forget it. Larry lay back down, turning toward the wall. Michael wanted to push, to demand answers, but something told him to let it go. Whatever was happening with his brother, it was bigger than basketball, bigger than their rivalry. The next morning, Michael woke early and went to the garage. He was surprised to find his father there, sitting on an old stool, writing in a journal. Dad, what are you doing? James quickly closed the journal. Just thinking, writing down some thoughts. About what? James studied his son's face. About you, about Larry, about the choices parents make and how those choices affect their children. That sounds heavy for 6 in the morning. James smiled. Being a father is heavy, Mike. You carry things, secrets, regrets, hopes, that weigh on you every day. But you carry them because you love your children, because you do anything to give them the best life possible. Did you do something wrong? Michael asked. Is that what this is about? I did what I thought was right at the time. But sometimes what's right is also painful. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is something they won't understand until much later. James stood up and put his hand on Michael's shoulder. Promise me something, son. Promise me that no matter what you learn in life, no matter what truths come out about our family, you'll remember that I loved you. That everything I did was because I loved you. You're scaring me, Dad. What's going on? Nothing's going on, I'm just being philosophical. Old men do that. James forced a smile. Now go practice your free throws, you're still missing too many. Michael went outside to shoot baskets, but he couldn't shake the conversation. There was something his father wasn't saying, something important. That afternoon, while his parents were out, Michael went into his father's office. He knew he shouldn't snoop, but curiosity won. He found the journal on his father's desk, left open to a recent entry. Michael read the page, his heart pounding. Today I told Larry part of the truth. Not all of it, he's not ready for all of it, but enough to help him understand why his life feels different. I told him about dreams that don't come true, about living in someone else's shadow, about finding purpose in unexpected places. I didn't tell him about Evelyn. I couldn't, not yet, but I saw in his eyes that he suspects something. Larry is smart, observant. He knows there's more to our family story than we've shared. Michael stopped reading, confused. Who was Evelyn? What truth was his father keeping from Larry? He flipped back through the journal, finding entries that went back years. He read about his own cutting from the varsity team, and his blood ran cold. Coach Herring called today. He's deciding between Michael and Leary Smith for the last varsity spot. He asked my advice. I told him to cut Michael. God forgive me, I told him to cut my son. But Michael needs to feel rejection. He needs to feel pain. He's too confident, too sure of himself. This will light a fire in him that will never go out. Michael's hands shook. His father had orchestrated the worst day of his life. The rejection that had fueled every success, every championship, every moment of greatness, it had been planned. He heard the front door open. His parents were home. Michael quickly closed the journal and left the office, his mind reeling. He never told anyone what he'd read. Not Larry, not his mother, not his father. He buried it deep inside, along with all the other complicated emotions of being James Jordan's son. But that night, James added more pages to the envelope marked truth. He wrote about the conversation with Larry, about the journal entry Michael had discovered. James had seen the pages moved, knew Michael had read them, and about the web of secrets that was becoming harder to maintain. My sons are getting older, James wrote. They're starting to ask questions I'm not ready to answer. Larry suspects something about his birth. Michael found my journal and read about the varsity team decision. The truth is closing in on all of us. Soon I'll have to reveal everything. Soon they'll have to know about Evelyn, about the adoption, about all the choices Dolores and I made to keep this family together. I pray they'll understand. I pray they'll forgive me. Back in the present, Michael opened his eyes. I read Dad's journal that summer. I found out he told Coach to cut me from varsity. I never told anyone. Larry stared at his brother in shock. You knew, all these years you knew Dad did that to you. I found out when I was 17. I was angry for a while, confused. But then I realized something. He was right. If I'd made varsity as a sophomore, if everything had come easy, I wouldn't have developed the drive I needed. That cut made me who I became. But he lied to you. He manipulated you. He pushed me, Michael corrected. The same way you pushed me in all those one-on-one games. Sometimes love looks like rejection. Sometimes parents have to break their children's hearts to build their character. Larry shook his head, processing everything. So Dad kept secrets from both of us. He orchestrated your biggest failure. He hid the truth about my birth mother. What else did he do? Let's finish the letter, Michael said quietly. Let's find out everything. No more secrets, no more hidden truths. We read it all tonight. Larry nodded. Together. Together. They picked up the next page, ready to discover what other truths their father had hidden, what other sacrifices had been made, and what other secrets had shaped the family they thought they knew. Michael lifted the next page, but his attention shifted to something underneath, a photograph that had been tucked between the sheets of writing. Wait, he said, setting the letter aside momentarily. There's more photos here, mixed in with the letter. Larry leaned closer as Michael carefully separated several photographs from between the pages. These weren't like the ones they'd seen earlier. These were more recent, more deliberate. The first photo showed a woman in her 30s, standing in front of a classroom. She wore a simple dress and had kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Behind her, a chalkboard read, "Welcome second graders." On the back, in their father's handwriting, Evelyn, 1982. She became the teacher she always dreamed of being. Larry took the photo with trembling hands. He stared at the woman's face, searching for something, anything that might connect him to her. Did he have her eyes, her smile, her chin? She looks nice, Michael said softly. Kind. She gave me away, Larry said, his voice hollow. She gave you to Dad, Michael corrected. There's a difference. The next photograph showed the same woman, older now, maybe in her 40s. She stood in what looked like a living room, holding a newspaper. The headline was visible: Jordan leads North Carolina to NCAA championship. That's from 1982, Michael whispered. My freshman year at UNC, she kept track of me. Larry flipped the photo over. More of their father's writing. Evelyn called me crying after watching your championship game, Michael. She said, James, you raised two wonderful sons. I may have given birth to one, but I'm proud of both. She asked me to send this photo to her. I did. Michael's eyes filled with tears. She was proud of me. A woman I never met was proud of me. They continued through the photographs. Evelyn at different ages, always alone in the pictures, always with that same gentle sadness in her eyes. And mixed in were photos their father had sent her. Larry's high school graduation, Michael's college games, family gatherings where Evelyn existed only as an invisible presence. There was a photo of Larry and Michael together, maybe 20 years old, arms around each other, both smiling. On the back, sent to Evelyn, 1983. She keeps this one by her bedside. She watched us grow up from a distance, Larry said, his voice breaking. She watched her son grow up through photographs. Michael picked up another photo, this one more puzzling. It showed their father as a young man, maybe 25, standing outside a hospital. His face was drawn, exhausted. He held a piece of paper in his hand. That must be from when you were born, Michael said. Look how young Dad looks. But Larry was studying a different photo, one that made his blood run cold. It showed a teenage girl, maybe 17 or 18, sitting on a hospital bed. She held a tiny baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Her face showed both joy and heartbreak, tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at the infant in her arms. On the back, Evelyn holding Larry, January 15, 1963, 3 days before the adoption was finalized, the last time she held her son. Larry's hands shook so badly that Michael had to take the photo from him. That's me, Larry whispered. That's the last time my birth mother held me, and I don't remember any of it. You were 3 days old. How could you remember? I can't, that's the point. I can't remember her face, her voice, her touch. She's a stranger who gave birth to me, and now she's just photos, just stories, just a name. Michael set the photographs down and pulled his brother into a hug. Larry resisted for a moment, then collapsed against Michael's shoulder, crying like he hadn't cried since they were children. I don't know who I am anymore, Larry said between sobs. Everything I thought I knew about myself, it's all different now. You're Larry Jordan, Michael said firmly. You're my brother. You're the man who taught me how to compete, how to fight, how to never give up. That doesn't change because of biology. But Dolores, Mom, she wasn't. She was your mother, Michael interrupted. She chose you, she adopted you, she raised you, she loved you. That's what makes a mother, not DNA. They sat like that for several minutes, Michael holding his older brother the way Larry had held him countless times when they were young. Finally, Larry pulled away, wiping his eyes. I'm sorry, Don't apologize, this is huge. This changes everything and nothing at the same time. Larry picked up another photograph, this one showing a family photo he recognized. It was from Christmas 1975. Larry was 12, Michael was 11. They stood in front of the tree with their parents and siblings, all smiling. But now, looking at it with new eyes, Larry saw things he'd never noticed before. The way Dolores's hand rested protectively on his shoulder. The way James stood between him and Michael, one hand on each son, as if physically connecting them. They were holding us together, Larry said, showing Michael the photo. Look at Dad, he's literally keeping us connected. Michael studied the image. He was always doing that. In every family photo, he made sure we were close to each other. I thought it was just because we were brothers, but maybe he knew we'd need each other when the truth came out, Larry finished. They found more photos. Evelyn at different stages of life, always watching from afar. Their family at different moments, carefully documented and shared with the woman who couldn't be there. One photo stopped them both. It showed a woman in her late 50s, clearly Evelyn, standing outside a basketball arena. The marquee behind her read, Chicago Bulls vs. New York Knicks. On the back, Evelyn came to see Michael play June 1993. She sat in the upper deck where no one would recognize her. She cried when he won. She said, "That's Larry's brother, that's my son's brother." She left before the final buzzer, not wanting to intrude on your celebration. This was 2 weeks before I died, the last time I saw her. Michael's voice cracked as he read it aloud. She was there, at one of my games, watching. Dad's last entry, Larry said. 2 weeks before he was killed, he knew time was running out. They sat in heavy silence, surrounded by photographs of a life they didn't know existed, a parallel story running alongside their own, featuring a woman who loved them from a distance, who sacrificed everything, who never got to be part of their lives. There's more letter to read, Michael said finally. We need to finish it. Larry nodded, gathering the strength to continue. They arranged the photos on the table, creating a visual timeline of Evelyn's life and their own, 2 stories that intersected at birth and then ran parallel for decades. Michael picked up the next page of their father's letter, his voice steady but emotional. I'm writing this in 1992, 1 year before my death. I don't know when you'll find this letter, maybe next year, maybe in 20 years, but I know you'll find it eventually. And when you do, I need you to understand the full story. Larry leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the page. Evelyn Reed gave up her son because she loved him more than herself. Dolores Jordan adopted that son because she loved me and chose to love my child. And I built my entire life around keeping my family together, the family that started with sacrifice and grew through choice. Michael continued reading. But here's what I need you both to know. Larry, you were wanted, you were fought for. You were chosen not once but over and over again every single day. And Michael, you were a miracle we didn't expect, a gift that made our family complete. You two were meant to be brothers. Everything that happened, every choice, every sacrifice, led to you two pushing each other, challenging each other, making each other better. Michael set the page down. He's building to something bigger than just the adoption story. Keep reading, Larry urged. We need to know everything. Michael picked up the final pages, ready to discover the last of their father's hidden truths, the reason why he orchestrated Michael's cut from varsity, the full extent of Evelyn's sacrifice, and the final secret that tied everything together. Michael's hand steadied as he read the next section of their father's letter. His voice was quiet but clear in the silent kitchen. Now I must tell you the hardest part of this story. The part that explains everything. Why I made the choices I did, why I kept these secrets, and why I orchestrated moments in your lives that seemed like accidents or bad luck. Larry sat forward, every muscle tense. Michael continued. The truth is, I didn't just keep Larry. I didn't just adopt my own son and move forward. I made a sacred promise to Evelyn the day she gave him up. She made me swear that I would tell Larry the truth when he was old enough to understand. She made me promise that her sacrifice wouldn't be forgotten, that Larry would know he came from love, not abandonment. Michael paused, his throat tight. He took a breath and kept reading. But I also made a promise to Dolores. She agreed to adopt Larry and love him as her own, but only if we raised him as ours completely. No confusion, no divided loyalties, no painful truth until he was grown. She wanted to be his mother in every way, and I agreed. These two promises, to Evelyn and to Dolores, lived in conflict for 30 years. Larry's eyes were closed, his hands gripped together so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "I know what you're thinking," Michael read. "You're thinking I should have been honest from the beginning. But imagine being a child and learning that your mother isn't your biological mother, that somewhere out there is a woman who gave you away. What would that do to a young mind? Dolores and I decided to wait, to let you boys grow up as brothers, simple and complete, until you were men who could handle the complexity." The letter continued, and Michael's voice grew softer as their father's words revealed deeper truths. Larry was born January 15, 1963. Michael was born February 17, 1963, just 13 months later. The timing was miraculous and complicated. When people asked how we had two babies so close together, Dolores would smile and say, "God blessed us twice in 1 year." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Michael stopped reading and looked at his brother. "We're only 13 months apart. I never really thought about how unusual that was." "Keep reading," Larry said, his voice hoarse. "I need to hear all of it." Michael picked up the next page and the story deepened. Evelyn's father died in 1985. That was when I could have told you the truth without causing scandal or shame to her family. But by then, you were both grown men. Larry was 22, Michael was 21. You had your own lives, your own identities. I feared the truth would shatter the foundation we'd built. The letter shifted, and James's handwriting became more urgent, more emotional. So I made another decision. I decided to shape your lives in ways that would prepare you for this truth. Michael, I orchestrated your cut from the varsity team because I saw you becoming comfortable, complacent. You had talent, but you didn't have hunger. Larry was beating you in one-on-one every single day, and you were starting to accept it. I needed you to feel rejection. I needed you to understand what it meant to be told you weren't good enough. Because someday, you would learn about Larry's adoption, about Evelyn's sacrifice, about rejection that came from love. And you would need to understand that sometimes the people who reject us are actually saving us. Michael's voice broke. He set the page down and covered his face with his hands. "He did it to teach me about sacrifice," Michael whispered, "about rejection that comes from love." Larry reached across and took the page, continuing where Michael had left off. "Larry, I watched you struggle with being surpassed by your younger brother. I saw the pain in your eyes when Michael started getting attention, when scouts came to watch him instead of you, when your role became Michael Jordan's brother instead of just Larry. I could have prevented some of that pain. I could have pushed Michael less, elevated you more. But I didn't, because I needed you to understand what Evelyn felt, what it meant to sacrifice your own glory so that someone you love could shine." Larry's voice trembled as he read, but he pushed forward. "Every choice I made was preparing you both for this moment. The moment when you would read this letter and understand that family isn't about biology or fairness or getting what you deserve. Family is about sacrifice. It's about giving up your own dreams so someone else's can come true. It's about being cut from a team so you can develop character. It's about living in someone's shadow so they can stand in the light. It's about giving away your baby so he can have a father." The brothers sat in silence, absorbing their father's words. Outside, night had fully fallen. The house was dark except for the single light above the kitchen table. Larry turned to the final page of the letter. His voice was stronger now, filled with emotion but steady. "I'm writing this in October 1992. Michael has just won his second NBA championship. Larry, you called me last week and told me about your new job, about your family, about how proud you are of Michael. And I heard something in your voice, peace. You've made peace with your role in Michael's story. You understand, even if you don't know why yet, that your purpose was always to push him, to challenge him, to make him better." Michael stood and walked to the window, his back to Larry, listening as his brother read. "Soon, I'll tell you everything. I've decided that when Michael wins his third championship, and he will win it, I'm certain, I'll gather both of you and reveal the truth. You'll be ready then. You'll have lived enough life to understand complicated love, impossible choices, and necessary sacrifices. Larry's voice caught, but he continued. But if you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance. It means I'm gone, and this letter is all I have left to explain. So let me say this clearly. Larry, Evelyn Reed is your birth mother, but Dolores Jordan is your mother. Both things are true. Both women loved you with everything they had. One gave you life, the other gave you family. And both sacrificed for you in ways you'll never fully comprehend. Michael turned from the window, tears streaming down his face. Michael, Larry read, Larry is your brother in every way that matters. You share a father, you share a family, you share a story. The fact that you have different biological mothers doesn't change the fact that you were meant to be brothers. Everything, every game, every loss, every victory was building toward you two understanding that greatness isn't individual. Greatness is built on sacrifice, on people who love you enough to let you go, to push you away, to hurt you so you can grow. Larry set down the page, unable to continue. Michael came back to the table and picked up the final paragraph. Sons, I love you both more than words can say. I'm sorry I kept these secrets. I'm sorry I caused you pain. But I would make the same choices again because those choices gave you life, gave you each other, and gave you the strength to become the men you are. Larry, find Evelyn. She's waited 30 years to meet you. Don't make her wait any longer. Michael, help your brother through this. You've always been there for each other. Don't stop now. And both of you forgive me. Forgive Evelyn. Forgive Dolores. Forgive everyone who loved you enough to break their own hearts so yours could be whole. Your father, always and forever, James Jordan. Michael set down the letter. The brothers sat in complete silence, the weight of their father's confession settling over them like a blanket. Finally, Larry spoke. He died before he could tell us, before he could explain in person. He was murdered in 1993, Michael said. Just months after writing this, he never got his chance. And Mom, Dolores, she kept the secret even after he died. Because she loved us, Michael said, because she knew we weren't ready. Larry stood and walked around the table. He looked at the photographs spread across the surface, images of Evelyn, of their family, of a life split between truth and necessary fiction. Tomorrow we meet Clara, Larry said. Tomorrow we learn more about Evelyn. Are you ready for that? Michael asked. Larry thought for a long moment. No, but I'm going anyway. She deserves that much. She gave me up so I could have Dad. The least I can do is learn who she was. Michael stood and embraced his brother. We'll do it together. Together, Larry agreed. They stood in their childhood kitchen, two brothers who had just learned they were half-brothers, two men who had just discovered their entire family history was built on secrets and sacrifice. But they were still brothers. That hadn't changed. That would never change. Morning came too quickly. Neither brother had slept much. They sat at the kitchen table as dawn broke, drinking coffee and staring at the photographs spread before them. We should leave soon, Michael said, checking his phone. It's about 2 hours to Greensboro. Larry nodded but didn't move. He kept looking at one particular photo, Evelyn holding him as a newborn, tears on her young face. What do I even say to Clara? Larry asked. What do I ask? You ask about your birth mother, Michael said gently. You ask about the woman who loved you enough to let you go. They drove in Michael's rental car, taking back roads through North Carolina. The landscape was familiar, pine trees, small towns, churches on every corner. This was home, the place where their story began, though now they knew that story was more complicated than they'd ever imagined. Clara's house was a small brick ranch in a quiet neighborhood. Before they could knock, the door opened. An elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes stood there, her hand over her heart. Larry, she whispered. Oh my goodness. You look just like her. Larry felt his throat tighten. Like Evelyn. Like your mother, yes. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Come in, please, both of you. The living room was filled with photographs. But these weren't random family pictures. These were all of Evelyn. Evelyn as a teenager. Evelyn in her 20s. Evelyn teaching in her classroom. Evelyn growing older, her hair turning gray, but those kind eyes always the same. She was my best friend for 63 years, Clara said, settling into a chair. We met in first grade and never spent more than a week apart until she died 2 months ago." "I'm sorry for your loss," Michael said. Clara smiled sadly. "Thank you, but I didn't lose her completely. She left me with a mission, to make sure you boys knew the truth, to make sure Larry knew how much she loved him." Larry sat on the edge of the sofa, his hands clasped tightly. "Tell me about her, please. Tell me everything." Clara took a deep breath and began. "Evelyn Reed was the kindest person I ever knew. When we were children, she would bring home injured birds and try to nurse them back to health. She cried at sad movies and laughed at terrible jokes. She wanted to be a teacher from the time she was 8 years old." Clara picked up a photo from the coffee table, young Evelyn, maybe 16, smiling at the camera. "Then she met your father, James. She was 17 and he was 19. They fell in love the way young people do, completely, desperately, without thinking about consequences. James was handsome and kind. He played baseball and dreamed of going professional. Evelyn thought he was going to be a star." "What happened?" Larry asked. "Life happened," Clara said. "Evelyn got pregnant in the spring of 1962. Back then, that was a scandal that could destroy both their lives. Her father was furious. He was a deacon at the church, a respected man in the community. He saw James as a poor factory worker who would ruin his daughter's future." Clara's voice grew sad. "He gave Evelyn an ultimatum. Give up the baby for adoption to a good family, go to college and never speak of it again. Or keep the baby, marry James and be disowned from the family." Michael leaned forward. "That's not a choice, that's cruelty." "It was 1962, Clara said. "Things were different then. Harsh, unforgiving. Evelyn was heartbroken. She loved James. She wanted to keep her baby. But she also knew James had just injured his shoulder and lost his chance at baseball. Without that, he was just a factory worker with no prospects. So she gave up her son to save him," Larry said quietly. "No," Clara corrected. "She gave you to your father. There's a difference. When James met Dolores, when Dolores offered to marry him and adopt the baby together, Evelyn saw a way to give you what she couldn't, a stable home, 2 parents, a real family. She sacrificed her own happiness so you could have a father." Clara stood and walked to a bookshelf. She pulled down a small box and brought it back to the sofa. "Evelyn never married. She never had other children. She became a second-grade teacher and poured all her love into those children. But she never forgot you, Larry, not for one single day." Clara opened the box. Inside were dozens of letters, all addressed to Larry but never sent. Letters for birthdays, Christmas, graduations, milestones Evelyn watched from afar but could never celebrate in person. "She wrote you a letter every year on your birthday," Clara said, handing the stack to Larry. "She never sent them because James asked her not to. He wanted you to grow up without confusion, without divided loyalties. But she wrote them anyway, hoping that someday you would read them." Larry took the letters with shaking hands. The top one was dated January 15, 1983, his 20th birthday. He carefully opened it and began to read aloud. "My dearest Larry, today you turn 20 years old and I wonder if you're celebrating with friends, with family. I wonder if James made you a cake like he said he would in his last letter. I wonder if you're happy. I gave you up 20 years ago today, and not a day has passed that I haven't thought about you. I see you in every student who sits in my classroom. I see you in every young man who walks past my house. I see you everywhere, and yet I've never seen you at all. Happy birthday, my beautiful boy. Your first mother, Evelyn." Larry's voice broke and he couldn't continue. Michael gently took the letter from him. Clara wiped her own eyes. "She followed your whole life, Larry. When you played basketball in high school, she came to games and sat in the back of the bleachers where no one would notice her. When you graduated, she stood at the edge of the crowd and watched from a distance. She was always there, always loving you, always hoping you were happy." "Why didn't she ever approach me?" Larry asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't she ever tell me who she was?" "Because she'd made a promise," Clara said. "She promised James that she wouldn't interfere, wouldn't confuse you, wouldn't disrupt the family he and Dolores had built. She kept that promise for 30 years, even though it broke her heart every single day." Michael spoke up. "The letter said she followed my career too, that she was proud of me." Clara smiled. "Oh, she was so proud of you, Michael. She used to say, 'I gave birth to one son, but God gave me 2 to love.' She watched every Bulls game. She cried when you won championships. She kept every newspaper clipping about you. To her, you were Larry's brother, which made you family. Clara reached into the box again and pulled out a videotape. She made this 6 months before she died. She knew her time was running out and she wanted you to see her face, hear her voice. She wanted you to know she was real. Larry stared at the tape. Can we watch it? Of course, that's why I called you here. Clara led them to a small TV in the corner and inserted the tape. The screen flickered and then Evelyn appeared, an elderly woman with gray hair and those same kind eyes from the photographs, sitting in a chair in what looked like this very living room. Hello, Larry, Evelyn's voice came through the speakers, warm and gentle. Hello, Michael. If you're watching this, then I'm gone and Clara has done what I asked her to do. I'm glad. I've waited so long to talk to you, even if it's only through a recording. Larry leaned toward the screen, tears streaming down his face. Larry, I want you to know that giving you to your father was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the most loving thing I ever did. I gave you a family. I gave you James and Dolores, who loved you completely. I gave you siblings and a home and everything I couldn't provide. I hope you had a wonderful life. I hope you were happy. I hope you know that every single day I loved you. Evelyn's image smiled through her own tears. And Michael, thank you for being Larry's brother. Thank you for pushing him and challenging him and standing beside him. Thank you for being part of the family that I could only love from far away. You boys were meant to be brothers. I believe that with all my heart. The video continued for 20 minutes. Evelyn told stories about her life, about teaching, about the students she loved. She talked about watching Larry and Michael grow up from a distance, about the pride she felt, about the love that never dimmed. I'm not afraid to die, Evelyn said near the end of the video. I'm ready to go, but before I do, I need you to know that you were wanted, Larry. You were loved. You were never abandoned. You were given to people who could give you everything I couldn't. That's not abandonment. That's love in its purest form. The screen went dark. The three of them sat in silence, the weight of Evelyn's words hanging in the air. Finally, Clara spoke. There's one more thing. Evelyn left something for both of you. She handed Larry a small jewelry box. Inside was a gold locket. Larry opened it and found 2 tiny photographs, one of infant Larry, one of toddler Michael. She wore this every day for 30 years, Clara said. Both of you close to her heart always. Larry closed his hand around the locket and wept. Michael knelt beside his brother and placed a hand on Larry's shoulder. The room was silent except for Larry's quiet sobs and the ticking of a clock on the mantel. Clara handed Larry a tissue and waited patiently. She'd carried Evelyn's story for 2 months, waiting for this moment. She could wait a few more minutes. Finally, Larry lifted his head. His eyes were red, but there was something else there too, a kind of peace or maybe the beginning of understanding. Can I keep these? Larry asked, holding up the letters and the locket. All of it. It's yours, Clara said. Evelyn left everything for you. There are more boxes in the spare room. Photographs, report cards from her students, journals she kept. She documented her whole life, hoping that someday you'd want to know her. Larry stood and walked to the window. Outside, children played in a neighbor's yard, their laughter floating through the glass. He watched them for a moment, then turned back to Clara. Why did she wait so long? Why didn't she reach out after Dad died in 1993? She could have told me then. Clara sighed. She thought about it every day, but your mother, Dolores, asked her not to. After James died, Dolores called Evelyn. It was the first time they'd spoken directly in 30 years. Dolores said, "My boys just lost their father. Please don't take away their mother too. Let them grieve without confusion. When they're stronger, when the time is right, we'll tell them together." But Mom never told us, Michael said. She died without telling us. Your mother got sick faster than anyone expected, Clara explained. By the time she realized she was dying, she was too weak to have difficult conversations. She told me once, about a year before she passed, that she hoped you boys would find James's letter. She said, if they find it, they'll understand. James explained it better than I ever could. Larry returned to the sofa and picked up another letter from the box. This one dated January 15, 2023, just 2 years ago. His 61st birthday. He opened it and read silently at first, then aloud. My dearest Larry, I am 80 years old today. We share a birthday month, you and I am dying. The doctors say I have perhaps 6 months. I'm not afraid. I'm ready to rest. But I'm sad I'll never meet you face to face. I'm sad I'll never hear your voice or see you smile in person. I've lived my whole life loving a son I gave away, and soon I'll die without ever holding you again. But I don't regret my choice. I gave you to your father so you could have a family, and from what I've seen, you had a beautiful life. You have children of your own now, grandchildren, a career, a home, people who love you. That's all I ever wanted for you. So even though my heart is breaking as I write this, I'm also grateful. Grateful that my sacrifice gave you happiness. Sleep well, my son. Dream beautiful dreams. Your first mother always, Evelyn. Larry set down the letter and looked at Michael. She died never knowing if I'd forgive her, never knowing if I understood. She died knowing she loved you, Michael said. That's what mattered to her. Clara stood and retrieved another box from the hallway. This one was larger, heavier. She set it on the coffee table. This is for both of you, she said. Evelyn collected everything she could find about your family. She wanted you to see how your lives intertwined, how your stories connected even when you didn't know it. Inside were scrapbooks filled with newspaper clippings, articles about Michael's basketball career, starting from high school and continuing through 6 NBA championships. But mixed in were smaller articles about Larry, his college basketball career, his wedding announcement, his business achievements. She saw you both as her sons, Clara said. She celebrated both your victories. Michael flipped through the pages, seeing his life documented by a woman he'd never met. There were photos she'd cut from Sports Illustrated, ticket stubs from games she'd attended, programs from events she'd watched from the shadows. One page stopped him cold. It was a newspaper article from 1993, just after James Jordan's murder. The headline read, "Michael Jordan's father killed in tragic robbery." Beneath it, in Evelyn's handwriting, "My heart is broken. James was a good man, the best man. He kept his promise to me for 30 years. He raised our son with love and dignity. Now he's gone and I'll never get to thank him properly. Rest in peace, James. Rest knowing you were the father I could never be." Tears fell onto the page. Michael quickly wiped them away, not wanting to damage Evelyn's words. She grieved for Dad, Michael said. Even though they hadn't been together in over 30 years, she grieved for him. She loved him her whole life, Clara confirmed. She dated other men over the years, but she never married. She said her heart belonged to James and to the son she'd given him. Everything else felt like betrayal. Larry sat back down, overwhelmed by the depth of Evelyn's sacrifice. She gave up everything. Her son, the man she loved, the chance at her own family. She gave up everything so I could have a father. That's what love is, Clara said simply. Real love is sacrifice. Your father knew that. He sacrificed his pride to keep you. Dolores sacrificed her chance at biological children, or so she thought, to give you a mother. Evelyn sacrificed her own happiness to give you a family. Every adult in your life chose your well-being over their own comfort. Michael pulled out his phone and stared at it for a moment. Then he looked at Clara. Did she ever try to contact me? Did she ever write to me? Clara smiled. She did. Not as many letters as she wrote to Larry, but yes, she wrote to you too. She pulled out a smaller stack of envelopes, maybe 20 in total, all addressed to Michael Jeffrey Jordan, all unsent. Michael took them carefully. The first was dated February 17, 1983, his 20th birthday. He opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Michael, today you turned 20 and I want to thank you. Thank you for being Larry's brother. Thank you for pushing him and challenging him and making him better. I watch you play basketball and I see fire in you, determination that reminds me of your father when he was young. You're going to be special, Michael. I can feel it. But more than your talent, I'm grateful for your heart. I'm grateful that Larry has you as a brother. That's worth more than any championship. With love and gratitude, Evelyn Reed." Michael's voice wavered as he read. "She thanked me for being Larry's brother. She saw how you two pushed each other," Clara said. "She understood that both of you were better because you had each other. That's what James and Dolores created, a family where love multiplied instead of divided." Larry and Michael sat together on the sofa, reading letters from a woman who loved them from the shadows. Letters full of pride, hope, gratitude, and endless aching love. After an hour, Clara brought them lunch, sandwiches, and sweet tea. They ate in the kitchen while she told them more stories about Evelyn, how she volunteered at homeless shelters, how she fostered dogs that no one else would take, how she lived simply so she could donate to scholarship funds for single mothers trying to finish their education. She turned her pain into purpose, Clara said. She couldn't raise her own son, so she helped hundreds of other children through teaching and charity. She couldn't have the family she wanted, so she created family wherever she went. As afternoon turned to evening, Clara showed them one final item, a letter Evelyn had written specifically for this moment, sealed with instructions to open it only after they'd learned everything else. She wrote this 3 days before she died, Clara said, handing it to Larry. She wanted it to be the last thing you heard from her. Larry broke the seal and unfolded the paper. His hands were steadier now, his emotions more controlled. He read aloud. My dearest Larry and Michael, if you're reading this, then Clara has done what I asked. You know the truth now. You know about the adoption, about the sacrifice, about the love that built your family. I have one final thing to tell you. Don't be angry. Not at James, not at Dolores, not at me. We did the best we could with impossible circumstances. We chose love even when love was painful. We chose family even when family was complicated. Larry, I am not your mother. Dolores is your mother. She raised you, loved you, sacrificed for you every day of your life. I gave birth to you, but she made you who you are. Honor her, remember her. Love her memory the way I loved you, completely without reservation. Michael, take care of your brother. He's going to need you in the days ahead as he processes this truth. Be patient with him. Be kind to him. And remember that you two were always meant to be brothers. Nothing about biology changes that. Finally, I want you both to know that I'm at peace. I'm ready to rest. My life wasn't what I planned, but it was full of love. Love I felt, even if I couldn't always express it. I loved you, Larry, every moment of every day. And I loved you, Michael, for being the brother my son needed. That's enough. That's more than enough. Live well. Love deeply. Forgive freely. Your first mother and your brother's grateful friend, Evelyn Reed. The letter ended and silence filled the room. Larry folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the envelope. He looked at Michael, then at Clara. Thank you, Larry said simply. Thank you for keeping her story. Thank you for making sure we knew. Clara smiled through her tears. She would be so happy right now, so proud of the men you became, so grateful that you're here together. As the sun began to set, Michael and Larry prepared to leave. Clara gave them the boxes, the letters, the photographs, everything Evelyn had left for them. At the door, Larry paused and turned back to Clara. Will you tell me more about her sometime? Will you help me know who she really was? I would be honored, Clara said. You call me anytime. I have 63 years of stories to share. They loaded the car in silence, placing the boxes carefully in the trunk. As they drove away from Clara's house, both brothers were quiet, lost in their thoughts. Finally, Michael spoke. How do you feel? Larry thought for a long moment. Sad, grateful, confused, angry, peaceful, all of it at once. Yeah, Michael agreed. That sounds about right. I keep thinking about Dad, Larry said. About how he carried this secret for 30 years. About how he orchestrated your cut from varsity to teach you about sacrifice. About how every choice he made was preparing us for this moment. He loved us, Michael said. In complicated ways, but he loved us. I know, Larry said. I just wish he'd trusted us with the truth sooner. Maybe we weren't ready sooner. Maybe we needed to live our lives, make our mistakes, become who we are before we could handle this. They drove through the North Carolina evening, two brothers returning home with a truth that changed everything and nothing at the same time. They didn't go straight back to Wilmington. Instead, Michael pulled into a rest stop about halfway home. Neither brother had spoken for the last 30 minutes, both processing everything Clara had shared. I need to read more of these letters, Larry said, reaching for one of the boxes in the back seat. I can't wait until we get home. I need to know her now. Michael nodded and turned off the engine. They sat in the parking lot as darkness settled around them, the dome light creating a small circle of illumination. Larry pulled out letters at random, reading them silently at first, then sharing pieces with Michael. Some were short, just a few lines on a birthday or holiday. Others were longer, pages of thoughts and feelings Evelyn had needed to express even knowing no one would read them. One letter, dated January 15, 1975, Larry's 12th birthday, caught his attention. My dearest Larry, you are 12 today. James sent me a photo last week. You're tall now, almost as tall as he was at that age. You have my eyes, did you know that? And my smile. Sometimes I look at your picture and see myself staring back. Today in my classroom, I had a student named Marcus. He's 12, just like you. He struggled with his math homework, and I stayed after school to help him. As we worked together, I pretended he was you. I pretended I was helping my own son with his homework, the way mothers are supposed to do. It was a beautiful dream, even though it hurt when reality came back. Do you like school, Larry? Are you good at math? Do you have friends? Do you play sports? James tells me some things in his letters, but I always want to know more. I want to know everything, but I can't ask because asking would be selfish. I gave you up so you could have a normal life, and normal lives don't include birth mothers hovering in the shadows asking questions. So I'll wonder and dream and love you from far away. Happy birthday, my beautiful boy. Your first mother, Evelyn. Larry's voice broke as he finished reading. She thought about me every day, every single day. She loved you, Michael said simply. Some people love once and move on. She loved you forever. Larry pulled out another letter, this one from much later, January 15, 2010. His 47th birthday. My dearest Larry, I am 67 years old. My hands shake when I write now. My eyesight isn't what it used to be. I'm getting old, and with age comes the knowledge that I'm running out of time. Today I did something I haven't done in years. I drove to Wilmington. I parked outside what I thought might be your house. James gave me the address years ago, though I promised never to use it. I sat in my car for 2 hours hoping to catch a glimpse of you, and I did. You came outside to check the mail. You wore a blue shirt and jeans. You looked healthy and happy. You smiled at a neighbor who waved to you. I watched you for maybe 30 seconds before you went back inside, and those 30 seconds were the most precious gift. You're real, you're alive, you're well. That's all a mother can ask for. I drove home crying, not from sadness, but from gratitude. Grateful that I got to see you one more time. Grateful that the sacrifice was worth it. Grateful that you exist in this world, even if you don't know I'm in it too. Happy birthday, my son. Your first mother, always watching, always loving, Evelyn. Michael wiped his eyes. She saw you, she came to your house. In 2010, Larry said, I would have been cleaning up after my daughter's birthday party. She must have seen my whole family. She saw that you were happy. That's what she needed. Larry set the letters aside and reached for a different box, one filled with journals. He opened the first one, dated 1963, the year of his birth. The pages were filled with Evelyn's neat handwriting, documenting her pregnancy, the birth, and the 3 days she spent with Larry before the adoption was finalized. January 15, 1963, Larry read aloud. He's here. My son is here. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The nurse let me hold him for 20 minutes. He has dark hair and eyes that look right through me. I counted his fingers and toes 3 times, just to make sure he's real. James came to the hospital, but my father wouldn't let him in the room. He stood outside the door and I heard him crying. We're both crying, both breaking, both saying goodbye to our son before we've barely had a chance to say hello. Larry turned the page. The next entry was dated January 17, 1963. Tomorrow they take him. Tomorrow I sign the papers that give my son to James and Dolores. I haven't slept in 2 days. I keep holding him, trying to memorize everything about him. The way he smells. The way his tiny hand grips my finger. The sound of his breathing. I'm trying to press these memories so deep into my mind that I'll never lose them. The nurse came in earlier and said, You're doing the right thing. But how can giving away your baby be the right thing? How can breaking your own heart be good? I don't understand. I don't think I ever will. Michael's hand found Larry's shoulder. I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry you're reading this. No, Larry said firmly. I need to read it. I need to know what she went through. The final entry from January 1963 was dated the 18th, adoption day. He's gone. My baby is gone. I held him one last time this morning. I whispered in his ear, I love you. I will always love you. Your father will take care of you. Be happy, my sweet boy. Be happy. Then the social worker took him from my arms and I watched him disappear through the door. James and Dolores are waiting in another room. They'll take him home today. They'll become his parents today. And I'll become nothing. Just a girl who made a mistake and gave away the consequence. But he's not a consequence. He's my son, my beautiful, perfect son. And I'll love him until the day I die. Larry closed the journal and set it carefully on the dashboard. He couldn't read anymore, not right now. She was 17, Larry whispered. She was just a kid herself. She was brave, Michael said. She gave you the family she couldn't provide. That takes incredible courage. They sat in silence for a while, watching cars come and go from the rest stop, families on road trips, truck drivers grabbing coffee, people living normal lives while Larry and Michael's world had been turned upside down. Finally, Larry spoke again. I want to see her grave. Tomorrow, I want to go to where she's buried and I don't know, I just need to see it. We'll go, Michael said, together. Larry pulled out one more item from the boxes, a photo album labeled My Boys. Inside were pictures Evelyn had collected over the years. Some were photos James had sent her. Others she'd clearly cut from newspapers and magazines. There were pictures of Larry at every age, school photos, basketball games, his wedding day. And mixed in were pictures of Michael, game action shots, championship celebrations, magazine covers. On one page, Evelyn had placed two photos side by side. One showed 5-year-old Larry holding a basketball. The other showed 5-year-old Michael holding the same basketball, taken 13 months later in the same driveway. Beneath the photos, in Evelyn's handwriting, brothers, different mothers but brothers in every way that matters. I gave Larry to James and God gave James another son. They were meant to find each other. They were meant to be family. Michael stared at the page. She understood. Even from the outside, she understood what we meant to each other. Dad knew it too, Larry said. That's why he did everything he did. The secrets, the manipulations, the careful planning. He was building something. He was creating a family that would be strong enough to handle the truth when it finally came out. Larry flipped through more pages. There were photos from Michael's college days at North Carolina, his draft day, his rookie season, his first championship. On each page, Evelyn had written little notes. Michael's first championship, 1991. I watched on TV and cried. Larry's brother is a champion. I'm so proud. Michael's second championship, 1992. He's unstoppable. James must be so proud of both his sons. Michael's third championship, 1993. James died before he could see this one. My heart is broken, but I know he's watching from somewhere, smiling at his boys. Michael's throat tightened. She considered me family. Even though I'm not her son, she loved me because I'm your brother. You are family, Larry said. Biology doesn't change that. We're brothers. We've always been brothers. It explains why Dad pushed us so hard, why he made us compete, why he never let either of us get comfortable. He was preparing us for this, Michael agreed. For the day we'd learn the truth and have to decide if we'd stay together or fall apart. Larry closed the photo album and looked at his brother. I choose together. No matter how complicated this is, no matter how much it hurts, I choose you. You're my brother. That's never going to change. Michael pulled Larry into a tight embrace. Brothers, always. They held each other in the parking lot of a highway rest stop. Two grown men crying like children, grieving for the mother one of them lost and never knew, grateful for the family that had been built on sacrifice and love. After several minutes, they pulled apart. Michael wiped his eyes and started the car. Let's go home, he said. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do with all this. Tomorrow we'll visit Evelyn's grave. Tomorrow we'll start processing. But tonight, let's just go home. They drove the rest of the way to Wilmington in comfortable silence, the boxes of Evelyn's memories safe in the back seat. The truth was out now. The secrets had been revealed, and somehow, impossibly, they were still brothers, maybe even more so than before. When they pulled into the driveway of their childhood home, both brothers sat for a moment, looking at the house where they'd grown up, the house where they'd played one-on-one, the house where Dad had kept his secrets and Mom had loved them both equally. This place will never look the same to me, Larry said quietly. No, Michael agreed. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to see it differently. Maybe we needed to understand that home isn't about where you come from. It's about who loves you. They carried the boxes inside, setting them carefully on the kitchen table. Tomorrow they would read more letters, look at more photos, continue learning about Evelyn Reed. But tonight, they were just two brothers standing in their childhood kitchen, grateful for the complicated, messy, beautiful family that had raised them. "Thank you," Larry said suddenly. "For what?" "For being here, for flying out when I called, for reading Dad's letter with me, for going to meet Clara, for everything. I couldn't have done this alone." Michael smiled. "That's what brothers do. We show up, we stay, we handle the hard stuff together." "Yeah," Larry agreed. "That's exactly what brothers do." They stood together in the quiet house, surrounded by boxes full of a love they'd never known existed, grateful for a truth that hurt but healed, destroyed but rebuilt, ended one story but began another. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows. Larry woke on the couch, disoriented for a moment before remembering where he was. Michael was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and one of Evelyn's journals open in front of him. "Couldn't sleep?" Larry asked, his voice rough. "Couldn't stop reading," Michael said. "Larry, there's so much here. Years and years of her life, all documented. She wrote about her students, her hopes, her regrets. But mostly she wrote about you, about wondering what you were doing, who you were becoming." Larry poured himself coffee and joined his brother at the table. "What year is that?" 1988. You were 25. She writes about seeing a newspaper article about your promotion at work. She was proud of you." Larry took the journal and read the entry Michael had been looking at. 1988. I saw an article in the business section today. Lawrence Jordan promoted to regional sales manager at age 25. It had to be my Larry, same age, same name, same city. I cut out the article and added it to my collection. My son is successful. He's making something of himself. James and Dolores raised him right. That's all I ever wanted, for him to have opportunities to succeed, to be happy. I wonder if he ever thinks about where he came from. Probably not. Why would he? He has parents who love him, a good life, a bright future. I'm just a shadow he doesn't know exists, but I'm a grateful shadow, a shadow that celebrates every victory, even from the darkness." "She celebrated everything," Larry said quietly. "Every small achievement, every milestone. She was watching my whole life." "And mine," Michael added, pulling out another journal from 1991. "Listen to this. June 12, 1991. Michael Jordan just won his first NBA championship. I watched the game at Clara's house because I was too nervous to watch alone. When the final buzzer sounded, I cried so hard I couldn't see the TV. Larry's brother is a champion. The boy James, raised alongside my son, has achieved what few ever do. I'm so proud. And I'm grateful that Larry has Michael, that they have each other. Brothers push each other to greatness. James knew that. That's why he fought so hard to keep Larry, so he could give him family, including the brother who would arrive just 13 months later." Michael set down the journal. "She understood us better than we understood ourselves." Larry stood and walked to the window. Outside, the old basketball hoop still stood in the driveway, rusty and tilted, but somehow still proud. "We should go see her grave today," Larry said. "Before we do anything else, I need to. I don't know, I need to tell her something, thank her maybe." "Clara said she's buried at Oak Hill Cemetery," Michael said, checking his phone. "About 20 minutes from here. We can go whenever you're ready." They spent the morning reading more letters, looking at more photographs. Each discovery added another layer to their understanding of Evelyn, her kindness, her sacrifice, her endless capacity for love. One letter particularly moved them both. It was dated July 23, 1993, just weeks after their father's death. "My dearest Larry," Michael read aloud. "James is gone, murdered. The news broke my heart into pieces I'm not sure we'll ever fit back together. He was a good man. The best man I ever knew. He loved you with his whole heart. He fought for you when I couldn't fight. He kept you when I had to let you go. He gave you everything I couldn't provide. And now he's gone, taken by violence and cruelty, and I can't even attend his funeral. I can't stand beside you and comfort you because you don't know I exist. I can't tell you that your father and I once loved each other, that we created you from that love, that every choice we made was to protect you. I'm sitting in my house, alone, grieving for a man I gave up 32 years ago, crying for a son who doesn't know I'm crying for him. James, if you can hear me wherever you are, thank you. Thank you for keeping your promise. Thank you for raising our son. Thank you for being the father I knew you would be. Rest in peace, my love. Rest knowing you did everything right." Michael's voice broke on the last sentence. He set the letter down and covered his face with his hands. "She loved him her whole life," Michael said. 32 years after giving up his son and walking away, she still loved him. "Some love doesn't end," Larry said. "It just changes form." At noon, they got in the car and drove to Oak Hill Cemetery. It was a small, peaceful place with old oak trees providing shade over neat rows of headstones. Clara had given them directions to Evelyn's grave. They found it in the newer section, under a young maple tree. The headstone was simple gray granite with an inscription. Evelyn Marie Reed 1945, 2025 beloved teacher, friend, and mother. Love is sacrifice. Larry stood frozen, staring at the word mother. Someone, Clara probably, had made sure Evelyn was remembered not just as a teacher and friend, but as what she truly was. Michael hung back, giving his brother space. Larry knelt beside the grave, his hand touching the cool stone. "Hi," Larry said softly, feeling foolish but needing to speak anyway. "I'm Larry, your son. I guess you know that already, wherever you are." He paused, searching for words that felt inadequate. "I'm sorry I never met you. I'm sorry you spent your whole life watching from far away. I'm sorry you died before I could thank you for what you did." Larry's voice grew stronger. "But I want you to know it was worth it. Your sacrifice was worth it. Dad was a great father. Mom, Dolores, was a great mother. I had a good childhood, a good life. I have children of my own now, grandchildren. I've been happy. Everything you gave up, everything you sacrificed, it gave me a life worth living." Tears streamed down Larry's face. "And Michael," Larry turned to look at his brother, who stood a few feet away, also crying. "Michael became the greatest basketball player who ever lived. But more than that, he became my brother, my real brother, the person who pushed me and challenged me and stood beside me through everything. You gave me to Dad, and Dad gave me Michael. That's the greatest gift anyone ever gave me." Michael stepped forward and knelt beside Larry. Together, they placed flowers they'd bought on the way, white roses, simple and beautiful. "Thank you, Evelyn," Michael said. "Thank you for Larry. Thank you for making the impossible choice that gave us our family. Thank you for loving us from the shadows. We see you now. We know you now. And we're grateful." They stayed for a long time, sitting on the grass beside the grave, telling Evelyn about their lives. Larry talked about his career, his marriage, his children. Michael talked about basketball, about championships, about the foundation he'd built to help kids. "Your sacrifice didn't just affect us," Larry said. "It affected everyone we've touched. Every person I've mentored in business learned from someone who was raised by James Jordan. Every kid Michael's foundation has helped benefited from the drive you helped create when you gave him a brother to compete with. Your love rippled out through generations." As the afternoon sun slanted through the maple leaves, they finally stood to leave. But Larry paused, turning back one more time. "I forgive you," he said clearly, "for giving me away, for watching from far away, for all the birthdays and Christmases we didn't share. I forgive you because I understand now. You didn't abandon me. You saved me. You gave me everything by giving me up." Michael put his arm around his brother's shoulders and they walked back to the car together. On the drive home, Larry was quiet but peaceful. Something had shifted in him. Some burden he didn't know he'd been carrying had been set down at Evelyn's grave. "What do we do now?" Larry asked as they pulled into the driveway. "How do we move forward with all this knowledge?" Michael thought for a moment. "We honor them. Dad, Mom, Evelyn. We honor their sacrifices by living well, by staying close, by being the brothers they worked so hard to give us the chance to be." "We should tell our families," Larry said. "The kids, the grandkids, they deserve to know the truth." "Agreed, but we tell it the right way, not as a scandal or a secret, but as a love story, because that's what it is, a complicated, messy, beautiful love story about people who sacrificed everything for family." They went inside and spent the rest of the afternoon organizing Evelyn's letters and journals. They decided to create a complete archive, everything documented, everything preserved, so future generations would know the full story. As evening approached, Michael's phone rang. It was his wife checking in. After he hung up, he looked at Larry. "I need to head back to Charlotte soon. Business meetings, but I don't want to leave you alone with all this." "I'm okay," Larry said, and he meant it. "I'm not alone. I have all these letters, all these memories. I have you just a phone call away, and I have the truth now. That's worth something." "It's worth everything," Michael agreed. That night they ordered pizza and sat on the back porch, watching the stars come out. The same stars that had watched over them as children, as teenagers, as men building their lives. "Do you think Dad knew?" Larry asked suddenly. "When he hid that letter, do you think he knew how it would all turn out?" "I think he hoped," Michael said. "I think he prayed we'd find it when we were ready, that we'd understand, that we'd forgive. I think he believed in us, believed we were strong enough to handle the truth." "He was right," Larry said. "It hurts, but we can handle it." "Because we have each other," Michael added. "That was his gift to us, each other." They sat in comfortable silence, two brothers who now understood the full weight of what it meant to be family. Not just blood, though blood was part of it, but choice, sacrifice, commitment, and love that persisted through secrets and time and pain. "I'm going to start a scholarship," Larry said suddenly. "In Evelyn's name, for single mothers who want to finish their education." She would have liked that. "That's perfect," Michael said. "And I'll match whatever you put in. We'll build it together." "The Evelyn Reed Jordan Scholarship Fund," Larry said, testing the name. "Yeah, that feels right." As midnight approached, they finally went inside. Michael would leave in the morning, but tonight they were together in the house where they'd grown up, where Dad had kept his secrets and Mom had loved them unconditionally. Larry paused at the door to his old bedroom. "Mike." "Yeah. I'm glad it was you. I'm glad that 13 months after I was born, Mom had you. I'm glad you were the brother I got to grow up with. If I could choose any brother in the world, I'd choose you." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "Same here, big brother, same here." They said goodnight and went to their separate rooms, but both of them lay awake for a while, thinking about Evelyn, about James, about Dolores, about all the people who had loved them enough to make impossible choices. And they thought about each other, two brothers, bound by more than blood, connected by sacrifice and love, and the determination of parents who had built a family strong enough to withstand the truth. 3 months later, the Jordan family gathered at Larry's house in Wilmington. Every sibling was there, along with their children and grandchildren, 3 generations filling the living room, spilling into the kitchen and out onto the back porch. Michael had flown in from Charlotte. Clara had driven down from Greensboro, carrying one final box of Evelyn's belongings. The family didn't know why they'd been called together, but they sensed it was important. Larry stood in the center of the living room, Michael beside him. The room gradually quieted as everyone found seats or leaned against walls, waiting. "Thank you all for coming," Larry began, his voice steady. "Mike and I asked you here because we have something to tell you, something about our family that we just learned ourselves, something that changes our history but not who we are." He paused, looking at the faces of his children, his nieces and nephews, his grandchildren. 3 months ago, I found a letter our father wrote before he died. In that letter, he told us the truth about where I came from." For the next hour, Larry and Michael told the story. They showed photographs of Evelyn. They read excerpts from her letters. They explained the adoption, the sacrifice, the decades of love from a distance. Some family members cried. Others sat in stunned silence. The younger generation asked questions, trying to understand how something so significant had been hidden for so long. Larry's daughter, Christina, spoke up. "So Grandma Dolores wasn't your biological mother?" "She was my mother in every way that mattered," Larry said firmly. "Biology doesn't make a mother. Love does. Sacrifice does. Showing up every day for 30 years, that's what makes a mother. Dolores was my mother. Evelyn was the woman who gave birth to me and loved me enough to let me go." Michael's son, Marcus, asked, "Does this mean you and Dad aren't really brothers?" "We're brothers," both men said simultaneously, then smiled at each other. Michael continued, "We're half-brothers biologically, but we're full brothers in every other way. We grew up together. We competed together. We pushed each other to be better. That doesn't change because we learned our mothers were different people." Clara stepped forward, holding the final box. "Your grandmother, Evelyn, wanted me to give you these if the truth ever came out. She made memory books for each of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, even though she never met you. She began distributing small photo albums. Each one was personalized, with the child's name written in Evelyn's careful handwriting. Inside were photos of family members, pressed flowers, and letters Evelyn had written to grandchildren she'd never meet. One of Larry's granddaughters, just 8 years old, opened her book and found a letter addressed to her. "Dear Emma, I am your great-grandmother, though you'll never know me. I gave up my son so he could have a better life, and that decision brought you into the world. You exist because of sacrifice and love. Remember that. Remember that family is built on choices people make, on love they give freely even when it costs them everything. Be kind, be brave, be grateful for the people who love you. Your great-grandmother, Evelyn." Emma looked up at Larry, her eyes wide. "She knew about me." "She knew about all of you," Larry said, his voice thick with emotion. "She followed our family for 60 years. She celebrated every birth, every achievement, every milestone. She loved us all, even though most of us never knew she existed." The family spent hours looking through the memory books, reading letters, examining photographs. Slowly, Evelyn stopped being a stranger and became part of their family story, the woman who had sacrificed everything so they could exist. As the afternoon turned to evening, Larry announced one more thing. "Mike and I have established the Evelyn Reed Jordan Scholarship Fund. It will help single mothers complete their education. We're starting with a significant donation, but we hope you'll all contribute over the years. It's a way to honor Evelyn's memory and help other women facing the impossible choices she faced." The family applauded. Several members immediately pledged donations. Later, as people began to leave, Larry's oldest son pulled him aside. "Dad, are you okay? This is a lot to process." Larry smiled. "I'm better than okay. I spent 62 years thinking I knew where I came from. Now I know the whole truth, and it's more beautiful than I ever imagined. I come from love, complicated, sacrificial, impossible love. That's a gift." Michael and Larry stood on the front porch, watching family members drive away. Clara was the last to leave. She hugged both men tightly. "Evelyn would be so proud," Clara said. "She worried her whole life that you'd be angry, that you'd feel abandoned. But look at you, you're honoring her, celebrating her, making sure her sacrifice meant something." "It meant everything," Larry said. "It gave us our family." After Clara left, the brothers sat on the porch steps just like they used to as kids. "You know what I realized?" Michael said. "Every person in our family, Dad, Mom, Evelyn, they all made the hard choice. They chose love over comfort, family over ease. That's what we inherited from them. Not money or fame, but the ability to choose love even when it's hard." "Dad orchestrated your cut from varsity," Larry said. "That must have been agony for him, knowing he was breaking your heart on purpose." "But he did it because he loved me," Michael said. "Because he knew I needed that pain to become who I was meant to be. That's real love, love that's willing to hurt in the short term to help in the long term." Larry nodded. "And Evelyn gave me away because she loved me. And Mom adopted me because she loved Dad and chose to love his son. Every hard thing that happened to us, it all came from love." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink. "I've been thinking," Larry said, "about writing a book, our story, not for fame or money, but so other people facing impossible choices know they're not alone. So other adopted kids know that being given up can be an act of love. So other families built on sacrifice know they're valid and real." "I think that's a great idea," Michael said. "But let me help, we tell it together." "Together," Larry agreed, "the way we do everything." A week later, they visited Evelyn's grave again. This time they brought photographs, pictures from the family gathering, images of grandchildren reading her letters, snapshots of 3 generations learning about the woman who had watched over them for decades. "We told them," Larry said to the headstone. "We told everyone the truth, and they understand. They're grateful. Your sacrifice created all of them, every child, every grandchild, every great-grandchild. They exist because you were brave enough to let me go." Michael added, "The scholarship fund is fully funded. We're already accepting applications. Single mothers who want to finish their education will get help because of you. Your pain is becoming purpose for other people." They stood quietly for a moment, then Larry spoke again. "I used to wonder why I never felt quite right, like something was missing that I couldn't name. Now I know I was missing you. I was missing the truth, but I have it now and I'm whole. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for giving me to Dad. Thank you for loving me from the shadows. I see you now. We all see you now." As they walked back to the car, Michael's phone buzzed. A text from one of his sons. "Dad, I've been reading Great-Grandma Evelyn's letters. They're beautiful. I'm proud to be part of this family." Michael showed Larry the text. Both men smiled. "We did it," Larry said. "We found the truth and it didn't destroy us. It made us stronger." "Because we had each other," Michael said. "That's what Dad and Evelyn and Mom gave us, each other. That's the real inheritance." 6 months after finding the letter, Larry and Michael appeared together on a talk show to share their story publicly. They wanted to control the narrative, to make sure Evelyn's sacrifice was understood properly, to show the world that family could be built in unconventional ways. The interview went viral. Thousands of people shared their own stories of adoption, sacrifice, and complicated family histories. The scholarship fund received donations from around the world. But more importantly, people started having honest conversations about what family really means, about biology versus choice, about sacrifice and love, about the adults who make impossible decisions so children can have better lives. Larry and Michael became advocates for adoption and for single mothers. They spoke at events, wrote articles, and used their platform to help others facing similar situations. Through it all, they remained what they'd always been, brothers. They still talked several times a week. They still got together for holidays. They still competed in friendly one-on-one games in Larry's driveway, though now they were in their 60s and the games moved much slower. One evening, shooting baskets under the same hoop where they'd played as children, Larry made a shot and grinned at Michael. "I'm up by 2, Larry said. "Just like old times." "Keep dreaming," Michael shot back, sinking his own basket. "You know I'm about to go on a run." They played until it was too dark to see the basket clearly. As they walked inside, sweaty and laughing, Larry stopped. "Hey, Mike." "Yeah. Thanks for being my brother, for real. Thanks for everything." Michael smiled. "That's what brothers do, man. We show up. We stay. We love each other through the complicated stuff." "Even when the complicated stuff is really complicated," Larry added. "Especially then." They went inside. Two brothers who'd learned that the truth can hurt and heal at the same time, that family is built on choices as much as blood, and that the greatest gift parents can give their children is each other. The letter had changed everything, but in the end, it had changed nothing at all. They were brothers before they knew the truth, and they were brothers after. The only difference was now they understood the depth of sacrifice that had gone into building their family. And they were determined to honor that sacrifice by living well, loving deeply, and showing the world that family, real family, is about so much more than DNA. It's about people who choose you, people who fight for you, people who give you up so you can have better, people who adopt you, people who push you, people who sacrifice their own happiness so yours can flourish. That's family. That's love. That's the truth James Jordan left in an envelope marked truth. And his sons, both of them, finally understood. We hope this story touched your heart and reminded you that family is built on love and sacrifice, not just blood. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our viewers around the world. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you help us spread kindness and share more inspiring stories with people who need them. And don't stop here. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible story that will touch your soul. Thank you for being part of our family. We'll see you in the next video.